and we are now in the pioneers in the history of polygraphy. So in the topic 3, we focus on the pioneers in the history of polygraphy. There are so many person involved or having the contribution into the polygraphy. Marami sila. But for now, I have some, kasi kinompress nga natin yung lecture to simple. That is yung mga tao lang na mas may mga malalaking contribution. Yung mga latest, I did not included yung mga masyadong latest na. Ito yung mga pioneers work kung how the polygraph or the lie detection, the parts of the lie detector machine, how it is developed, those person only yung kinuha natin. So from here, first in the history, even though Daniel Defoe with here walang machine pa dito. Kay Daniel Defoe, the British novelist who wrote an essay entitled An Effectual Scheme for the Immediate Preventing of the Street Robberies and Suppressing All Other Disorder of the Night, wherein he recommended that taking the pulse. So doon pa lang nag-start from that book or from that essay na sinabi niya, suppressing all disorder of the night. Ang ginamit is taking the pulse of a suspicious pillow was a practical, effective, and human method for distinguishing truthful from lying. So here, kasi sa kanya, naniwala na siya na those person who are, kumbaga, masyado nang mas mabilis yung pulse rate kapag nahuli mo siya, especially in the actual na nandun sa street doing bad or pwedeng may ginagawang hindi maganda or sabi natin yung mga street robbers, in that case mas mabilis yung pulse rate niya. Dahil dito sa mga pagkakataon na yon, doon sila nagsimula na mag-isip that taking the pulse or taking to that individual yung mismong sa kanyang manggagaling yung sa kanyang evidence na pwedeng siya mismo na nagsisinungaling, that is the case that will Daniel Defoe help para magsimula po yung polygraph. The Stoelting Company, although ito yung modern, itong picture is ito yung medyo modern na, but ito yung pinakang una po. The 1886 Christian HANS Stoelting founded the Stoelting Company or corporation were become a leading product supplier on the physiological, psychological, and psycho-physiological measurement. Not saying already nung time na yung kasi, is not totally as a polygraph, but yeah, there are yung focus on the physiological and psychological. Si Stoelting, as of now, marami pa rin silang napoproduce or ginagawa ng mga klase ng mga polygraph machine. That's why, ang sabi natin, the polygraph is not only one type. Marami pong klase ng polygraph and kanya-kanya ng paniniwala yung mga clients kung alin ang pipiliin nilang klase ng polygraph machine. So, the 1878, Angelo Mosso used an instrument called plethysmograph in his research on emotion and fear. So, focus siya with the emotion and fear. If we can say kanina, ang sinabi ni Daniel Defoe is focus siya on the pulse rate. But here, in the research ni Angelo Mosso, focus lang siya in emotion and fear in the subject. Yung takot, syempre, undergoing questioning, and he studied the effect of this variable on the cardiovascular and respiratory activity. So from that emotion and fear, the person, it affect the cardiovascular and respiratory activity. Pati paghinga ng isang subject will also included. Nakukuha or naiintindihan niya na ito yung pwedeng maging effect nung takot or nung pwedeng emotion or matinding emotion ng isang subject. That's why. Okay. So 1888, Sampson Perry, a French scientist who discovered the electrodermal response. Thus, we say electrodermal response or yung sinasabi nating galvanograph. This caused by an increase in action of heart and vital energy converted with human emotion. So kasama dun yung reaction ng ating um, skin sa kanya, dun siya nakafocus. So kung makita natin, unti-unti, bago siya na-develop, bago siya napunta dito sa electrodermal, so nagdaan muna siya with the fear and emotion. And dun sa cardiovascular. And then at the time, the same, nakuha niya with the heart and vital energy is also converted with human emotion. Where yung electrodermal or yung glands natin, nag-a-affect siya with the yung dermal activity natin. Mas nagkakaroon ng yung kuryente sa skin. Okay. When it comes to Sir Lombroso in 1895, so tumataas na yung niyan, employed the first scientific instrument to detect deception. But here, Lombroso, hindi siya yung una. Inano lang niya, minodified niya lang yung mga nauna, whereas the existing instrument called by hydrospemograph. This hydrospemograph and used his modified device in his experiment to measure the physiological changes. The physiological changes that occurred in crime suspect blood pressure. So kanina is not yet involved the blood pressure, but now involved already the blood pressure and pulse rate. And kanina hindi binanggit doon ni na Mosso about the focus lang sila sa emotion. But nung pumasok na si Sir Lombroso, kasi siya nakafocus siya kasi doctor siya. Si Sir Lombroso is a doctor where ang focus niya is the human being. So by that, mas lalo siyang nakita niya dito yung blood pressure and pulse rate during the police interrogation. Mas mabilis and mas tumataas. So doon niya na-discover na mas ini-improve niya yung mga naunang ginawang instrument. Si Hugo naman, Monsterberg, focus and advocated the lie test based on lie detector should be admissible as evidence in court. Dito si Hugo, medyo 19th century na kasi. So, kasi nung una, walang binanggit doon that it could be admissible in court. But he, as a lawyer, nag-focus siya that it could help to admit in the court. And also 1914, Vittorio Benussi is also successfully detected the deception with pneumograph. It is an instrument that graphically measure and examine inhalation and exhalation. Ito na yung breathing. Kaya nga pneumograph, it is the one parts of the machine and demonstrate the changes in breathing pattern accompany deception. Nagkakaroon daw sa kanya kasi doon niya na-discover na pagkakaiba-iba ng rate or ng pagtaas at pagbaba o yung rate ng ating breathing kapag tayo ay kinakabahan o medyo natatakot or may something na tinatago, yung changes sa breathing. Kasi yung pattern niyan, kapag hindi ka or normal lang, hindi siya nagtumataas o bumababa yung kanyang graph. But using this, the pneumograph, nare-record siya nitong instrument. Yung exhalation and inhalation. Yung pagtaas at pagbaba, yung the same nung paghinga natin. Si Marston also, William M. Marston, contribution to the science of detection and deception is more method than instrumentation. He believed that verbal deception could be detected by changes in systolic blood pressure. Ang focus ni Marston is also a blood pressure, almost the same kanina, but he used standard blood pressure cuff. Kung yung ibang ginagamit is yung parang isinusuot lang yung kamay just to look yung pulse rate. So dito, gumamit na siya ng blood pressure cuff, yung paggamit sa kanyang sa braso, paglalagay. Ang tawag doon sa sinasabi natin is sphygmomanometer to take the measurement of systolic blood pressure during interrogation. That is the way na nakatulong din si William Marston and the history or of the polygraph. Also, 1918 and 19th centuries na to, Harold Burtt determined that respiratory changes were indicative of deception. So kanina yung binanggit doon with the Lombroso, pero here mas binigyan niya or na-determine niya talaga na deception na talaga. He found out that changes in systolic blood pressure also were of the great value in determining deception than changes in the respiration. Kasi nga, getting the systolic, nagkakaroon ng irregularity, and then it could say na pwedeng deception or yung may itinatago na yung subject. Doon included yung respiratory. So that is Harold BURTT. Also, si John Larson in 1921, it developed a Larson Polygraph. That's why ngayon makita natin iba pa yung si Stoelting, iba naman yung kay Larson. Were an instrument capable of continuously recording blood pressure, pulse, and respiration. It was made on polygraphic apparatus, a portable form, and became the first assemblage of apparatus used by his co-worker in the Berkeley Police Department. In this Larson, parang mas nagamit na siya. Kasi nung una, it's only haka-haka pa lang, gawa-gawa lang. But here, it is the first time it is used, the apparatus na inasimbol niya. That is the first time sa Berkeley Police Department. At may kasama siya doon. Sino siya? In 1925, Leonard D. Keeler, who had gained first-hand experience in polygraph interrogation as a result of working with John A. Larson. Siya yung kasama ni Larson at the first time na ginamit nila yung polygraph na inassemble nila. Where in that Berkeley Police Department worked to devise a polygraph that used ink pen for recording. So, gumamit na dito sila nung time na yon. Yung tawag ngayon is yung pneumograph. So, dati, yung mga ink na yon, parang gumamit lang sila ng ink just to record yung mga changes in the subject blood pressure, pulse rate, and respiratory pattern. Meaning, medyo nagkumpleto na siya kasi may blood pressure na siya, may pulse rate na, and may respiratory pattern na. Thus eliminating the need for smoking the paper and then preserving it in the chela. Where paggamit na nila that is the time na nag-start na silang gumamit ng ink or gumamit na din sila ng paper, rolled paper. In this case, Leonard D. Keeler, because siya yung first-hand experience to have that interrogation, dito, in 1938, he further refined the polygraph where he added the third physiological measuring component for the detection of deception, where he included the psychogelvanometer. Ito na yung skin. Kasi kanina wala po dun yung skin. Included na ngayon dito, a component that measure changes in subject galvanic skin resistance during questioning and doing so. Thus signaling the birth of the polygraph was as we know it today. So that is now the first signaling of having the polygraph. At that time na complete na yung polygraph, yung parts were as of now as na ginagamit ngayon. Where 1939, Keeler also patented what is now understood as prototype of modern polygraph, the Keeler Polygraph. That's why meron din siya. Iba pa si Larson, may polygraph din si Larson, but also having also the Keeler Polygraph. So, Leonard D. Keeler also, he founded the first polygraph school, the Keeler Polygraph Institute in Chicago, Illinois. And because he is the person or first-hand na nagkaroon ng polygraph testing, and siya yung unang naisalang doon, today, Leonard D. Keeler is known as the father of the modern polygraph. That is on this history. Also, John Reid, again, pa rin ng 19th century, 1947, John A. Reid, a lawyer from Chicago, Illinois, developed the control question technique. So dati, kanina wala tayong binanggit about the questioning. On his, ito yung may pinakang malaking contribution when it comes to polygraphy because he developed now the question technique. Although, to share with you, there are so many techniques in the question or in doing the question, also the interpreting. But ang pinakang madami or pinakang sikat ngayon is the CQT, yung tawag ngayon. a polygraph technique that is incorporated control question, where yung sinasabi natin nagkaroon ng control question, maintindihan nyo yun mamaya kapag andun na tayo sa examination, doon sa part 3 ng examination. Kasi yung control question is used, galing ito kay John Ray, that is used to compare the emotion of the subject. We're arousing for non-deceptive subject and less emotionally arousing for deceptive subject and less emotionally arousing for the deceptive subject than relevant question previously used. Kasi dati, yung relevant and irrelevant question only. So, yung irrelevant question in-include dito. So, maybe hindi pa natin naaabot yung what is relevant and irrelevant and control question. It will be discussed doon sa pagbuo natin ng question. So here, by here, the generated question technique, ito yung magandang na-share niya with income to the polygraphy. Kasi ito yung una nating gagawin kapag nagkakandak tayo ng polygraph examination. Pagkakuha natin ng information sa subject, ito yung susunod, magkakandak na ng paggagawa na ng questioning. So ito yung medyo mahirap na trabaho na ni polygraph examiner. Okay, ito kay 1960, Cleve Baxter. Cleve Baxter, ito siya mahilig siya sa halaman. Siya yung klase ng taong mahilig sa halaman. Pero dito, ang pinukusan niya is the zone comparison technique, a polygraph technique which primarily involve an alteration of grade questioning or sequencing. Yung kaya nga may Baxter technique tayong gagamitin. Ito yung comparison technique, ang polygraph technique which pagpapalit-palit or yung sequencing ng question. Yung tamang pagkasunod-sunod, although isiningit na yung sinasabi nating control question. He also introduced the quantification system of chart analysis. Kasi dati, kung alin lang yung tumaas at saka bumaba dun sa graph, parang sige na, yun na yung sinasabi nating deceptive na or maybe truthful. But here, very important yung pagdating niya kasi yung quantification system is important also. Parang ito yung part na kung saan pagbilang na or pagtingin na natin dun sa chart. Let's make it more objective and scientific than before. Kasi yung dati parang manu-manong titingnan mo lang, pag tumaas na yung chart, pag tumaas na yung graph dun sa chart, sabihin, ano na to, deceptive kasi kinabahan. But here, mayroon siyang paraan how to do it. And mamaya, and the last part, yun yung part ng topic natin, in quantification system. Okay,